Hello, everyone. One moment while I get everything set up. Checking out the YouTubes. Don't you look? Nope. Don't. There's the trailer. Here we go. All right, and let's see. Okay, so Lee is a presenter. We'll make Lauren a presenter too, just in case anybody has any thoughts to share.
Yep, gotta have Lauren on. Need the. How you doing, Kyle? While Ted's doing all that, your COVID hair is coming in nicely.
I know. I've got this strange desire to wear Hawaiian shirts with the top 3 buttons undone. Go full 80s is my plan from here on out.
That would be awesome.
I also, and sure, it's no coincidence, I've had the song Valerie in my head for like days. You know, Valerie, call me. I'm the same boy I used to be.
Sounds like you've been listening to my Spotify playlist.
That's basically my life for the last week.
It's either 80s for me or techno music while I'm working because I get in the zone. But other than that.
So while all 5 of us are here on the screen, who among us has traveled within the past 3 months? So I know I have, and I know Kyle has.
Just short distances. It's nothing, 2 hours away to see my parents or my mom.
Okay. How about you, Clint? Have you been staying at home or traveling?
I went to California this weekend to go to Costco.
That counts. How about you, Lauren?
I've been mostly in New York, and then I'm headed out on Friday to Arizona. So that's a really different, yeah. And my grandma.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Where in Arizona?
White Mountains, Eager.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's up about almost to New Mexico.
Oh, okay. She's in a nice part of it.
I had to look it up as well. It's kind of like from Phoenix, it's up and over.
Yep. But I've done that drive from San Diego through Yuma, over to Phoenix, and then up to Eager every year for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you get past the foothills in California and you're like, where's life? What are we talking about today, Ted?
Today, we're going to talk about traveling during COVID-19. And I imagine within the next 6 months, some of us are going to have to travel for work. Some of us are going to have to travel for personal reasons. And I just recently did a bunch of travel. And so I think we should just talk about that so you kind of get an idea of what it's like right now. So there'll be some different thoughts on it, I'm sure. I just want to share my experience and hear about your experiences, and then maybe people can walk away with some good ideas for when they ultimately do have to go out into the world. And the things that I thought would be risky, I ended up thinking, no, that's not the problem, it's this other thing. So I really want to get into what those things are. And so I think that would be pretty cool. So with that, we'll go ahead and go through the boilerplate. So I'm going to turn my camera off. And so SEO this week, what can people expect?
Oh, this week I didn't do another show again. Lazy that I am.
Well, when will you be back?
I'm working on, I did What Ranks. I talked about that last week. I got that schema course launched and then just working on some new things. And people have bought it, given some feedback and stuff. So we're planning on adding to it. There's a new change to the job schema that, in the course I talked about why everyone should be leveraging job schema. And there's a new change to it that Google has adapted for the new COVID working environment, as it were, since you guys all know they all work from home at Google now. So they've adapted the job schema to adjust to that. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for business owners and SEO. So.
Very cool. So do you think you'll be back on air next Tuesday?
Yeah, next Monday. So
next Monday.
Yep. I'll be back. I've already got the topic planned. I'm waiting on my technology pack to come in because I got my new iPad so I can start drawing on the screens a lot better. And then we're going to talk about reciprocal linking and getting into a reciprocal link network that
awesome.
may or may not be right for you.
So what time on Monday?
2 p.m. Pacific time.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that out, and remember to always subscribe. Us YouTubers are desperate for subscribers because it enables different features in the platform. So please, if you like our content, remember to subscribe. There's another new show. This one came out of the Internet Marketing Gold Mastermind. So Dre DeVera has started a show called SEO Video Show on YouTube. And despite having a lot of, A-list SEO talent guests on the show for interviews, he still only has 135 subscribers. And his production quality is actually quite high for a YouTube SEO show. So it's, remarkable in that sense. And it's also got quite a bit of humor in between the content that he delivers. So I think we should all, rally, help this member of our community out. Check out his show. The interviews are awesome. And, let them know what you like. Let them know what you want to see. Give them ideas for future show topics. Let's help an SEO out, and let's check out the show. I really like it. What do you guys think of Dre's show?
I think I'm going to be on it soon, so definitely check it out while I'm there.
I like the production stuff. So his format is almost like SEO This Week, where it goes in the news and then he brings in the guests and then he talks about tips and tricks. I think that's cool. To me, what was really neat was watching him and how he presented things in a different way, and he used technology to do it, which was awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I just hit my to-do list with it. So
nice. And again, he's a member of our community, and I love these kinds of projects, especially if we can help promote him, help him get his subscriber count up. That's great stuff. So please do check out his show, and remember to subscribe. It's something you can do for free that means the world to beginning YouTubers. So definitely help him out. So what's coming up in IMG? We have this new thing. I've been away for a bit. So what's the premium SEO site audit that's on, that's tomorrow? What is that, Kyle?
So we go through an actual site and do an audit. In this case, it's an audit that we do for HVSEO. And when we walk through, like, hey, this is what's going on with this site. These are suggestions, and then we're going to do follow-ups to see how the implementation goes. Decisions that have to be made that during the audit process, with the idea that this is a real thing. This is a real site that's struggling for this reason or that reason, or is looking to improve this way or that way. And this will be part of a series. So if somebody's interested, they can submit their site. But also, if you're a provider of audits and you're within the community, it's an opportunity for you to also show off your audit. So we'll be looking for people that would like to kind of bring their site in to be audited, so we can see what's going on there, or also people that are doing audits. This is a great way to learn SEO. It's a great way to see how people approach different problems, what tools they use, what techniques they use, and what advice, and then kind of outcomes. Can that advice be implemented? Is it implemented properly? That kind of thing. So that's what we're going with. I think this is one of the best ways to learn SEO, And that's what we're doing with this series.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. And it looks like we have another IMG Pro tip on Friday. These are short videos that teach you a tactical method to solve a type of problem. So I love these pro tips. Is this one that you have produced, Lauren?
It's not actually. This is one from Matt, but it's a good one, so it's definitely worth checking it out.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, we have that coming up on Friday, and then next week on Tuesday, I'll be back doing my bi-monthly Ask the Expert. So for that, you'll be able to hang out and we can talk shop and talk about SEO or dive into examples, that type of thing. Kyle, you just did an AMA this week on Tuesday. How did that go?
Oh, that's a lot of fun. Lauren is the moderator. We go through questions that were posted within IMG. So if you saw a question that was posted and you were thinking about it, we go through a lot of those. And then as well as if you have just any questions, all you can jump on and ask me anything. And then we kind of have a chat about it. A lot of it is just opinion really from, myself or you, or like, what do we think about this or that? And so it's a fun kind of a relaxed environment. And just, I really enjoy the time.
Nice. And again, we alternate every other week. So if you like Kyle better, you can skip the boring TED episodes and just go straight to those.
Obviously.
All right. The SEO Testing Mastermind. Lauren, how about you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so, we have, of course, in IMG, a group of testers, and most of the time it's the testers who are chasing their own curiosity, wondering how things are working and, what does Google think about this? And so we have quite a few different tests. We have the Testing Mastermind where anybody can come in and look at what we've been running and what we've learned. And I love these because before the recording, there's actually the testers who are talking about, sort of how they're using it privately, the things they wouldn't say on film. And you can ask them anything. So I think it's definitely worth joining live for that because you don't get what you get, or you get more than what you get in the replay. So I'm excited to be there. And Lee is always there, and he always blows my mind.
Well, I appreciate that. It's more that the fun part about it for me is the ability to question each other about your tests, and there's a lot of cross-pollination that goes on there. That it's not a part of the test write-ups per se. So I think that's probably a big benefit that members are missing out on. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun, and if you're interested in seeing some of the inner workings of Google, come check it out.
Very cool. Thank you for that. And so that brings us to our topic, traveling during COVID-19. So my recent experience, I traveled for personal reasons. Many of you know my dad is sick. So I ended up going through 3 different airports with 7 total airport visits because I had 1 flight cancel. And I was on 4 different aircraft, 2 hotels for a total of 13 days, and spent 5 12-hour days at the hospital and regularly doing carry-out dining. So that's quite a bit of travel exposure, in my opinion. I know there's people who have done a great deal more than that, but, right now I think that's kind of a lot. Kyle, what is your recent travel experience like?
We drove 2 trips from Arizona to Florida in the Panhandle, and then from there to Virginia. So it was 3 days to get to 2 nights, 3 days to get to Florida, and then 2 days, 1 night to get to Virginia. So staying at we were staying at like those kind of extended stay kind of places. They give you a little kitchenette, so that made carry out eating a little bit easier because you get a little more room for like a dining room than a regular hotel room. And I've got a 5-year-old, and they need to run around a little bit.
Yeah. How about you, Clint?
Oh, we just drove last weekend. As a matter of fact, we drove to California just to do some shopping that we couldn't do here, and there and back is a 2-hour trip. So.
Well, that counts. So that's kind of what we've done. So our opinions will come from, that type of context. The first thing that I noticed when I did my travel is this little device was kind of the hero of the day. Like, in terms of my own personal safety, this little thing I think is more important than the face mask. And face masks, the experts will tell you they're not to really protect you. They're to protect essential workers from you. Because when we breathe, when we cough, when we talk, when we do any of those things, we kind of have a bloom of what they call mouth rain just spread all over anybody or anything around you. Now, these are microscopic droplets of moisture that contain germs. So obviously with a mask, when you inhale, if it's just an airborne virus, the mask does little or nothing. And that's why a lot of the anti-mask movement is like, it does little or nothing. Well, for you personally, but what it does is it protects essential workers from you. And that's the value. And the thing that I wish that society would recognize is we need to protect those frontline essential workers, because if they start dropping like flies, things will probably get a lot worse and a lot more uncomfortable. But the politics aside of it, I don't really care for that side of it, but I think this no touch tool for personal safety is kind of the hero of the day in my book. Have you guys seen or used these?
First time. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, the what I find is there's a lot of them out there. So I don't have an affiliate link. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to make money off of this. There's a lot of different options, and there's a lot of them out there that have different features. And if you're in affiliate SEO, I think this is a great opportunity because it meets my definition of source at $0.25 and sell for $25. So this is just machine brass. I find the larger the no-touch tool, the better it performs. So essentially, you hold it, you put your finger through the hole, and you use the cribbing here at the top for traction. And you're basically going to push with the flat end or pull with the hook. And so that's the idea. Some of them have different features. You'll find some that have stylus tips for touch screens, or they'll have bottle openers or built-in carabiners, or a number of different features. But I find just a robust one with a good flat pushing surface does the best. One thing you want to be mindful of is you don't want to get one that's too small, because the amount of distance between the pulling arm, you need room there to be able to grab and pull things. And so if it's too small, it may not work in all situations. So what I did was I got one for each family member, because why not? And some are better than others, like I mentioned, in different features. The best way to use these is on a retractable lanyard, so it's always at your hip, because if you don't have it ready, you're not going to be inclined to use it. And if you don't use it, you don't get the benefit from it. So if you could have it at the ready at all times, it's going to be an amazing tool. If it's buried in your backpack or purse, not so much. It's going to be hard to use it. And so some of the areas where I found this tool to be amazing is with just like on my way to the airport. First, there was the decision of, do I do a taxi or do I call a Lyft? And you can save money on a Lyft. And what I've noticed here in Seattle is that all of the cabs have a plastic divider between the driver and the occupant. But only about half of the Ubers and Lyfts have that. So if you want that plastic divider between you and the driver, you might be more inclined to go with a taxi. The problem with the taxi is it's not as convenient. It's typically more expensive and you have a longer wait time. But this tool is great for opening the car door, pulling the door closed once you're in, operating the buttons on a payment terminal, operating the windows, adjusting the vents because maybe they have recirculation on and you don't want the vent blowing in your face, adjusting the seats. You can use this tool for operating gas pumps if you're doing a car rental, the seatbelt release buttons. This tool, even before you get to the airport, is already doing work. And once you're at the airport or on the plane, and there's so much this can do. There's the check-in kiosk, the touch screens at the restaurants for placing orders, ATM buttons, vending machine buttons, pulling open the airport lounge doors, pulling and pushing food court chairs, water faucets or restroom faucet buttons, elevator buttons, the airplane lavatory itself. A lot of people don't consider that, but that's something you're probably going to have to touch on your flight. The soap dispenser buttons, restroom stall doors and the locks on them, raising and lowering toilet seats, flushing. Some airports still have mechanical flush levers, pulling open the seat pocket on the airplane seat, opening the overhead bins, the ticket dispenser in the car garage. So at the airport and on the plane, there's going to be, even more opportunities to use a tool like this. And then finally, when you get to the hotel, again, you have the payment terminals, the doors, the elevator buttons, those things are there. Things that you don't think about are that continental breakfast at the hotel. The hotels have reinvented what breakfast is in a lot of the cases. So what you'll see at the continental breakfast is they'll have breakfast options that are individually wrapped in parchment paper, and they'll be sitting on a hot plate at temperature to kill the virus. And so when you go to the continental breakfast, you just grab one and it's already at temperature. So that part of the continental breakfast at the hotels is great. The part that isn't is when you go to get your coffee or orange juice, it's going to be in a big dispenser, and there's going to be a plastic lever that every other occupant has used to get their coffee or juice. So if you have the no-touch tool, you don't have to touch that lever. Light switches, the thermostat control in the room, the mini fridge, the ice machine, all of those things, again, are opportunities to use this little device. And so, all these reasons are why I think this little tool is probably the number one protector for your safety while you're traveling. And are you guys sold on this tool yet?
That looks good.
Yeah. So if you're an affiliate SEO and you want to steal my bullet points for your affiliate website, feel free. I'm totally okay with that. So if you want to get into this niche, go for it. These little travel packs of Clorox wipes are awesome for the flight portion. So they're great in the airport. Like if you go to the food court, all the tables in the food courts will be spaced out. which is awesome. So one way you can do social distancing at the airport is to simply claim a table in the food court and hang on to it. And that way you'll have your own isolated space away from people, and you can just wait for your flight there. So obviously you can wipe down the chair, you can wipe down the tables, but on the aircraft itself, you know, I wonder if they actually clean the seatbelts. So, you know, it strikes me that they might not be cleaning the seatbelts between flights. That's something that people touch with their hands several times every flight. You know, the window shade is kind of obvious. What's not kind of obvious is that part of the wall where you ultimately end up resting your head if you have a window seat. You probably want to clean that down too. The seat pocket, and of course the touch screen for the entertainment. So these wipes are quite handy, so I highly recommend taking those. Masks are an interesting thing, like trying to figure out which mask is best. And what I've ultimately come to realize is that it's all in the ear loops. You know, if they're pulling your ears out, if it's uncomfortable, if it hurts after an hour, you've got the wrong mask. There are better masks. I found this particular mask. I tried dozens of masks on my trip. I got different masks every time. And this one came out of a big box store for $3.99 and is by far the most comfortable mask I found. So I bought a couple dozen of them. And they have a pocket so you can insert filters, so you can increase the amount of protection it provides by using different types of inserts on it, or you could just use it plain as a mask. But I highly recommend that if you're going to travel, try out a bunch of different masks and figure out which ones are going to be the best for you. Because if you have to wear it for 5 hours, you don't want it to hurt. And this one seems like an obvious one. Duh, wash your hands, get hand sanitizer. But really, the thing to kind of keep in mind is the rationale for why you want to carry around a travel-sized hand sanitizer. And the reason being is that we're going to make mistakes. It's like everything we're doing to stay safe in this time is like trying to unlearn bad habits, like don't touch your face, and to learn new good habits, like, you know, wipe down things that might be contaminated. But, you know, even with like that no-touch tool, I've had cases where I made mistakes. Oh, it was in my backpack and I have to check out right now because there's a line of angry people. Oh, I touched the buttons on the keypad. It's not the end of the world, but having that hand sanitizer, it helps mitigate the risk of the mistakes, and the mistakes are guaranteed. There were times where I stepped into an elevator, had the no-touch tool in one hand, and out of habit pushed the button with my other hand. You know, mistakes happen. The reason you want that tiny bottle of hand sanitizer is to correct your mistakes. This one is, you know, kind of optional, but I wore a lot of gloves at the hospital, and what I found is the ones that have powder inside of them, after you've been wearing them for an hour or so, it feels like you have sand inside of your glove, because the powder, you know, powder and sweat don't mix well over time, and so it feels gritty. And so I learned pretty quickly that I want to use powder-free gloves if you're going to go that route. So that's my recommendation there if you need to wear them for any length of time. So the main thing I wanted to come away with is, where do I think the danger is? And the danger isn't at the airport. You know, I initially thought that the airport was going to be a dangerous space, but it's not. You know, they've changed their policies. There are distance lines. There's lower volumes of people traveling. You know, there's fewer flights. So there are wide open spaces at most airports right now. And so it's kind of easy to stay away from people at the airport. So if you have to travel coming up, you know, I wouldn't fear the airport. I'd say it's about as risky as going to a grocery store. The part of the airport that's going to be dangerous is boarding your flight, because that's when everybody gets all close together, and the flight itself. So I think the airplane itself is probably the riskiest part of the travel. And if you're flying domestically and you can afford to do it, I recommend that you upgrade to first class, because the reason being is you're just going to be around fewer people. You can wait and board last. You can be the first to exit the plane, and you sit next to fewer people. You know, it's if there's ever a reason to pay the extra expense, it's probably for safety. So, you know, that's the way I kind of see it. And I think the safest seat on the aircraft is the bulkhead in first class next to a window. Because at that point, you're just away from as many people as possible. So I think that's, you know, probably the best seat on the plane. For international travel, there's an exception that might be where the plane starts to taper towards the tail. There's often a single seat all by itself next to no one. And that's in coach. It's not even in business class. Those single seats on international flights where the tail tapers might actually be the safest seat on a plane, because you're next to no one else at that point. So those are things to look at. And bulkhead seats in general probably reduce the risk. So there's more value in a bulkhead if you're worried about your safety. But, you know, overall, you know, the taxi is a short ride, you know, and it's short duration, very few people in a cab. So if you're careful, I don't think you need to worry too much about those either. What do you guys think about where the dangers might lie?
Well, I think you're right. It has to be on the plane when you're sitting right next to somebody, and then also the recycled air, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like my flight from Seattle to Chicago, they had clearance to travel higher and fly faster. So it's the first time in my life I've ever done Seattle to Chicago in 3 hours. My mind was blown looking at the flight computer display, because we were traveling, you know, just under 700 miles an hour. That's almost the speed of sound. You know, that's awesome. I didn't even know these consumer planes could do that. The flight back, they didn't get clearance, and that same trip took, you know, 5.5 hours. So I think if you can look at your airfares and look at the flight time, if you can get one that has a really short flight time, you know, that's less exposure overall. So that might be another way to get a safer flight. So how are things different when you drive across the country?
Well, I mean, it's instantly easier to self-isolate because you've got your own Lyft or Uber, right? Presumably the people in your car are okay. So you really don't have any of the largest risk there factor, your airplane. Most hotels were, so as I said, the places we stayed at were kind of like those extended stays. They were not very full, and none of them had any of the amenities open, like the pool or the fitness area, nor were any of the breakfasts open at the time. either. So they, for like the breakfast that they would provide, they gave you like a sack breakfast that contained like a sad looking apple and a individually wrapped string cheese or something. So there wasn't any opportunity to even, as you were talking about, touching the different parts of the buffet. That just didn't exist.
Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of things aren't open right now. Like at the O'Hare Airport, and O'Hare is an absolutely massive airport. In the terminal I was in, the only restaurant that was open was McDonald's. All of the other food service restaurants were closed down. So, in many respects, there aren't many choices at the airport. They also discontinued food and beverage services on these flights, so you have to bring your own food. So, if you have special dietary requirements, you pretty much have to bring that stuff with you if it's not available at the newsstand, where they sell the snacks. Because you may not get the selection you are used to at the airport. So, Clint, on your trip to go shopping in California, how did that go?
Not too bad. Like Costco, that's one of the stores we went to. They handle things pretty well. They're not sanitizing carts or anything like that, so you got to deal with that. But I'm kind of neurotic anyway, so I carry hand sanitizer around in the truck. So, and then going to like gas stations and other little tiny stores, it didn't seem too bad. Everyone's wearing their masks, as it were, and it seemed, to me, it's just kind of like life is normal. But that's kind of how Yuma, Arizona is too. It's kind of life is normal. There were only really places that were shut down, even here, just like the gyms. I think to your point on the restaurants and that stuff is closing, is a lot of business owners now, one, they were hurt, right? And then two, there's already the lawyers that are out there that are suing businesses and because the employees get sick or whatever. And it's kind of, now it's like, all right, if I open, I could get sued. If I stay closed, I can go out of business. There's a no-win for me, right? So they're dealing with that madness right now, and it's a little bit harder for those retail kind of situations that have increased exposure. But for the most part, it was pretty good. Even driving by the casino, there's people at the casino. So
yeah, no, people are out there for sure.
I think to me, just to me is kind of just be cognizant of who's around you. So I think it's clear that people will still, like, there's a situation over at my wife's work. She works for the government, and one of them was sick, and then said, "Oh no, I just had a cold," but then they tested positive for COVID. There's a story about this kid. He was a young kid, and he wanted to go out and party. It was as young kids want to do. Parents said no. He went out and got sick, and instead of saying, "Hey, I'm sick," he didn't say anything, and now his dad's in intensive care. So, just be cognizant that there's people like that are out there that, they're sick, but they're still going to go out and they're still going to interact with you. And that could get you sick, which is, that's just the value that I see of wearing a mask. I'm not, I'm not in the camp of everyone should wear a mask, and I'm not in the camp of everyone shouldn't wear a mask because the government did kind of thing, blah blah blah. But for me,
Yeah.
I have risk factors. So if this stupid piece of cloth on my face protects me even a little bit, why not try it?
Yeah, I think that, if you have a medical reason to not wear a mask, like, I understand that. But I think for, like, the rest of us, there are Americans who lost their children to foreign wars, and those people gave a lot for their country. And so I kind of feel like if the minimum our country could possibly ask of you is to wear a mask to protect at-risk people and essential workers, you know, that's really the minimum. I mean, come on, you can do the minimum, and it's temporary. It's just until there's a vaccine, and it's only in public. I mean, it's literally the least we could do.
Well, I understand the counter argument of not wearing it, which is this kind of, I know it's kind of going off track of what you're talking about, but it's the counter argument is, in the beginning, it was, oh, don't wear a mask. Don't wear a mask unless you're sick. And if you're sick, don't go out. But the mask is not really going to help you. You don't have to wear a mask. And then the reopening came, and what happened is what everyone expected to happen is now the people are out there interacting again, and then this quote unquote second wave comes. Well, no shit, it's going to happen. And now all of a sudden the mask is the savior of the planet. And if it wasn't any good the first time, the counter argument can be made is, why is it good now?
Because mistakes were made and we know better.
Well, we think we know better because we haven't had any. Has there been a study?
Yeah, actually,
and has there been a study on the mask that we're wearing? Right. So
yeah,
they're the one that the nurses and the N95s and all that stuff. But what are people wearing? They're wearing baklavas. They're wearing.
There have been studies, and any face covering is beneficial in those studies.
Well,
and what they did was they used
better than nothing, right? So
they used infrared, and they shot infrared photography of people breathing and speaking, and it shows the plumes of mouth rain that comes out of your mouth when you breathe and when you talk and when you cough, and it goes everywhere and it settles on everything. They're tiny, tiny droplets. And when you have any kind of a face covering, it prevents that plume from going as far as it normally would.
And then the counter argument would be that face covering also captures all of that stuff.
But you already
on your face mask, and then you take it off. And if you're not due diligent and you take it off and you touch yourself, or you put that face mask that is now covered with all of that stuff somewhere else and you make contact with that, you still spread it. So I see the counter arguments in that. So it's just, and those are all logical counter arguments. And just like the counter arguments of the malaria drug. And here's this 10 studies that say it's good. Here's these 10 studies that say it's bad. And you guys figure it out. Kind of where, the same argument with the masks and the people are having. Like I said, I wear it. I go out and I wear it, not because you ever told me to, but because I have asthma and I don't feel like getting attached to a freaking ventilator. So,
well, you know, my ultimate opinion outside of the politics is that you wear it to protect your essential workers that you come into contact with. So
I don't think people are like, I get your point there and I agree with it. You should be protecting people that are out working, especially if you're sick. And the number one protection is keep your ass at home. But if you have to go out, then wear a mask. But I do also think that the argument that people should wear it to protect other people in general is kind of failing, because I think we've shown, at least in my mind, for the last 4 years, that we could care less, 2 craps less about each other. So I think you might have to do another thing. You know, I have to come up with another point.
I'm going to throw 2 cents in here. You know, the interesting thing about this, and it's not just this one, this particular situation brings out a lot of this, but anytime you're dealing with probabilistic systems, if you sit there and say, there's a 60% chance of this, you know, there's some people going, yeah, 60%, let's go after it. And then other people will be going, yeah, but there's a 40% chance of the other thing, you know, and then those sort of things are you know, how we all feel about different levels of risks. That kind of fuels both sides of these arguments. But for me, the interesting thing, going back to Ted's no-touch tool is looking around. I'm kind of always looking for loopholes. And so I look to see where are the things that are not protected, not covered. And they're weird little things. If you go in to a retail or restaurant and you're, signing for your check, the pen that they use, or the little touch pen at a kiosk, if you're throwing away your food, the little flap on the trash cans that everybody touches, there's the door handles getting in and out of businesses. If you sit there and grab coffee somewhere, the place where all the lids and the little straws are, those are generally, you always pull out more than one. Your hand doesn't just touch one thing. And it's hard in some of those situations for a no-touch tool to work. Everybody protects the countertops. They wipe those down over. Grocery stores are pretty good about those things. But then, there are other things that are just wide open and exposed because we don't pay attention to all the little details as well. So I try to think when I'm out and about and look at all of those things that everybody touches, uses, comes into contact with, which ones of those are not covered, protected, wiped down, whatever, because those are, our societal petri dishes, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, definitely those coffee lids always have me wondering, because I've seen it 1,000 times where people pull out 2 of those coffee lids, and what do? They put one back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of crazy in that regard. Maybe
more importantly, with the coffee lid, when you go to put the creamer or the sugar in, do you put the lid upside down on the counter or the other way?
Right.
I see people put their lids on so that the mouth part is now touching the counter.
Right.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole episode on just coffee technique. Well, Clint, I appreciate the counterpoints. Thank you for sharing those.
I think those are kind of good discussions, because people can't have discussions anywhere else without unfriending them or making things personal. So it's nice having a group of people that you can actually do that and have civilized conversations.
Yeah, I'm open-minded about it. I still feel we're still being asked to do the least possible during a crisis from our nation. I still think it's very minor. So when people get like really angry about it, it's like, come on, it's a small thing, it's not a huge sacrifice,
I think it must be great for you to be in a position where nothing else in your life is as bad as now you have to wear a mask. so if your life is going that good, that you have to be mad because you got to wear a mask.
Yeah, and it's temporary. Nobody's saying forever. It's just until we get a vaccine out to the people, and then that can go away and good riddance. But let's just get there first.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the different countries and how they react. I have a friend in Paris, and she said that in order to go on a run, she could only go 1 kilometer from her house, and she had to carry a note, and it showed her intent and her actual address. And I was asking her about it, and she said, we remember World War II. We remember what it was like and how important it was to stay in our houses. Where in the US, in New York here, it's like staying in was a suggestion, and it was our choice on whether or not we wanted to stay in.
And there's another country, I think it's Sweden. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Sweden where they didn't lock down anybody. They're not wearing masks and they're not practicing, and they've already conquered the curve, quote unquote. But I think it's populations. It's to me, if you comparing France and America is apples and oranges, because there's, in my opinion, the French are more into the socialist arguments where, and this is politics, and Kyle knows I love talking politics. It's awesome. It's just, you got this one set of people who's used to saying, okay, I'll do it because the government said so. And then you got Americans where, we're just not hardwired that way. And you're not going to make us be hardwired that way, no matter how much you riot and burn down Portland and Seattle and all that other madness. And that's just how we are. We're selfish pricks who are obnoxious, and we want you out of our lives, right? So, and that changes based on the dichotomy of where you're at. If you're in the city, you're less likely to be that way versus someone who's, in the countryside or whatever. And or Ted knows, you have one way of thinking in Washington State, and then you have King County. You know what I mean? So it's
you
to
get
compare Paris and New York. It's you're different cultures, in my opinion.
Definitely, yeah. And that's been really interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. Are there any final thoughts? Anyone want to get in the last word?
Anybody want to give an over-under when we're going to start having live conferences again?
That's a good question.
To me, I don't think those are happening again unless Congress passes something that what is that shield from lawsuits kind of thing. Because if a hotel allows, well, one, you're hosting it, so you're opening yourself up to it. The hotels will be opened up to it, and then the caterers and all that madness. So I don't see live conferences coming back anytime soon.
Well, that's an interesting point. Maybe people in chat and in the communities can let us know if we should start organizing an online-only event. Would you do an online-only conference? Let us know your thoughts. I'd be interested to hear those. And with that, we'll go to networking. So thanks a lot, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.